the next presenter, Stephen Kent. Stephen has been working with film and television since he's been 15. Since he was 15. He worked as a film and video colorist. Stephen is currently a production editor at CTV in Saskatoon. Welcome, Stephen. Please come in.
Hi. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I just came to talk a little bit about the craft of color correction that I participated in for about 17 years. The stuff you're seeing now is just a sort of a broad spectrum of the work that I did over the years. I got my start in Toronto, moved out to Edmonton, and then I ended up in Warsaw, and then all points in between Warsaw and Bombay, Mumbai over the years. And the website contains mostly information or mostly work from my time in Warsaw, but it does contain pictures and stills from other places. Does anybody know anything about color correction or colorists? Ever heard of the concept or the idea? That's like a few. Basically, it's a stage in post-production where we finalize and we try to make the pictures look as good as possible. All the pictures are moving. You're watching stills now, of course, but all the pictures move. And the idea is that my job is to help directors and cinematographers, achieve the atmosphere they're going for in the pictures that they're trying to create, either in advertising, motion pictures like full feature-length films, documentaries, music videos. Most of the stuff that I did was commercial-oriented because the revenue stream is there. It's fast turnaround. It's you can make a lot of money doing it. I was a freelancer. I worked for various companies. I freelanced for Kodak, and that's how I ended up traveling to all these different places. And there's video examples on here. I encourage you to come to the website at stephenjkent.com. Not very original, I'm sorry to say, but yeah, it'll give you an idea. Yeah, we'll have a look at this stuff. This is a film restoration. So most countries around the world, they have long histories of filmmaking, and they're now just catching on to the fact that they should be archiving them and sort of trying to save them for future generations should they wish to watch them. And this is a good example. There won't be any sound, but you'll get the idea of the before and after. These are marketing tools. I didn't make these, but I did work on the color correction, and there was a whole team, sort of behind the background, trying to take all the little pieces of dust off, trying to stop the picture from shaking, taking a film that was made in the 60s and trying to make it look like it's, current or was just made yesterday. That wasn't actually our goal, but our goal was to, heighten the experience, get the colors right, take away the dust particles, get rid of these scratches, as you can see, that kind of stuff. But, cinematographers and directors, they lean on folks like me to just help either, realize the vision of the color, of the atmosphere, and the feeling of what they were going for. And yeah. You can see there's some, pretty severe damage on some of these old negatives. And you have to imagine they're sourced from all sorts of places, prints, negatives, internegatives, all kinds of technical stuff that, you try to bring back to life. And this is sort of, just an example of some of that. And it's fun listening to the stories of the old filmmakers too. They have great stories about the trials and tribulations they went through to actually have their films made. And this was a film from the 60s. It's Polish actors playing people from Egypt. It's pretty great. And they did it inside of Russia at the time because they were behind the Iron Curtain, and just the rest follows. So they had, I think they had fun, but it was a lot of hard work. So yeah, so basically we sit in dark rooms, or at least I sat in dark rooms from all the different places that I went to, and tried to help directors achieve the look of whatever they're going after. And so that would involve directors, cinematographers, you'd have agency people, you would have production houses, and they would all sort of, come to a pretty dark room, and we would try to, help them out and make the pictures look as good as possible. That's good. Any questions?
You said how long? 17 years you were doing it? So what was you sort of hit the pivotal time between film and digital.
Right.
Can you just talk a bit about how big that transformation was and what that meant from shooting celluloid and color timing it to moving to a digital world?
Right. It was a pretty significant change, and I was sort of there right in the middle of it happening, actually. Almost all the material I have on here is sourced from motion picture negative. That's someone taking film, putting it in a camera and exposing it, having it run through a processing machine, and then get sent to me, and then we do whatever we do with it. Yeah, it was a pretty huge revolution. It was like half and half for a while, and then suddenly film just basically disappeared. It's not that people weren't using it, they just weren't using it in the large quantities that they had been in the past. So suddenly you went from film acquisition to digital acquisition. And there are challenges with that. You know, with film, you have much more latitude. With digital acquisition, you have less. And I mean, in terms of the ability to reach into details, pull things out, push things back in. But now digital, I think, has just for sure caught up without any trouble. And it looks fantastic, you know. But when I sit in a cinema and I watch a movie, I can for sure tell the difference. But it's difficult, you know, from time to time. So, but I love just, you know, films in general. I don't care what they shoot them on, as long as they're good, I'll watch them.
We took a lot of VCR video of our kids when they were small, and I understand that that deteriorates over time. And we took a lot of pictures as well. So now we put that onto digital. Will that last forever, or what's the next trick?
You know, these VHS tapes won't last. You know, they have a limited, you know, lifespan. But if you shot on film, you got about 100 years if you store it properly, right? If you have a negative, like original camera negative, you know, and you can process it to higher resolutions in the future, and it'll still look great. But yeah, you'll have about 100 years. Most feature films, if they're stored in the right kind of conditions, they'll last about that long. And in a way, film is more future-proof than digital acquisition currently, but I'm sure people are working on that, and that will get better. And that means that you can take a film from 100 years ago, scan it, put it up in the current resolution of the day, and you can see a breathtaking picture, you know, and still be amazed. If you shoot something on red or some kind of digital camera and you overexpose it, and 100 years from now someone tries to deal with that material and they didn't you know, record it properly, then you don't have any chance. But do something with your VHS tape soon. It's not going to last.
So I'm curious what the digital resolution equivalent of 35 millimeter film is, and if that varies between different types of film.
I don't know the answer of the lines, you know. Yeah, I couldn't give you a good answer. You'd have to look on Wikipedia or do a little bit of research there. 35 millimeter, you know, you can scan it as much as your scanner will let you go, right? Batman was 8K. They tried to scan like the 70 millimeter stuff, you know, from a few movies ago. They tried to scan that stuff, you know, in 8K and do post-production at that level. So that's 8,000 lines by who knows what. The highest I've ever done is 4,000 4K. It's 4K stuff and down. But yeah, it's, you know, it's touching on the point of it being future-proof, you know, a little bit.
That 4K was from film?
Yeah. So, and the resolution is incredible. One small example, somebody gave me a piece of IMAX film, and that's like 65, 70 millimeter, or is it 120 sideways? I forget now. But we put it on a scanner, just one frame, and we were zoomed all the way in, and there was no breakup, and it was a picture of the space shuttle, you know, going around the Earth, and the resolution just knocked my socks off. And I had a huge, you know, HD monitor. I could just see all the perfect detail. Yeah, it's crazy. Film's cool.
Test. I used to have a friend that was involved with a company in Toronto in the 80s called Colorization, who did this kind of work that basically died because of the cost of labor. There were a lot of companies that moved their operations to the Philippines and other places. Like
you're talking about colorizing black and white to color.
Yeah, or treating film and stuff. What's the labor situation? Do you use labor like that, and how does that work?
You know, when I was doing it, it was like I said, you know, the guys were shooting commercials or whatever on film. They literally take that negative, send it to a lab inside the city. So whether I was in Warsaw, Prague, Kiev, wherever I was, that film would come back to me, and then I would start color correcting it. So in terms of labor process, it's a pretty small circle. But in terms of taking black and white film and rotoscoping, masking color onto it, right? That is like labor intensive. So you're talking about frame by frame, somebody going through shape after shape, right? And applying some color that they think looks good or looks right. I only had one small experience with that, and that was historical footage from Warsaw during the war era, during World War II. It was black and white. They were trying to color it. And the results that came back, they went to India, and they gave us a preview. They did like 4 or 5 minutes, and I couldn't imagine it took 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm not sure. But that's very labor intensive, and yeah, that was the first time I saw it. And the colors didn't look, so amazing or so true, but it was still a neat process. But anybody else?
Questions? All right. Thank you very much, Stephen.